That's why we gotta fix the clocks in this one.
Well, there you have it.
Mayor McClure, we are streaming to YouTube. Mics are on. We're ready when you are.
Okay. I'll call this meeting of the Seward City Council to order. It is Monday, September 23rd. It is 7 p.m. and we're having a meeting. Chief, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Roll call for tonight's meeting. Barnwell.
Here.
Kreitz.
Here.
Calhoun.
Here.
Osenga.
Here.
Finch.
Here.
Wells.
Here.
And Mayor McClure.
Here.
Okay, you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. We're now at citizen comments on any subject except items scheduled for public hearing. As I look through our business tonight, I don't see any public hearings. You can speak on any topic you wish. You'll have 3 minutes. There's a 36-minute total time. And if you've signed in on the sign-in sheet, you get first dibs, and then I'll just take show of hands. And when you come up, state your name, please, and if you live inside or outside the city limits. Mr. Clerk, has anyone signed up?
Nobody has signed in to speak.
Gee. Okay, who wants to talk? Come on.
Jazz Odner, inside city limits. I'm bummed I missed the work session. I didn't know that was happening. But hello, I own property in the Afognak subdivision in Forest Acres. I appreciate the efforts in trying to find solutions to our unique and unfortunate situation. Us property owners have been eager to make progress on not only getting utilities, but being able to build our own homes in Seward. The struggle to find housing in Seward has continued to become more and more difficult each year. I'm ready to utilize the property I bought to build a home and not have to worry about if I'll find housing in the spring. Airbnb has made it nearly impossible for year-round residents who don't own a home to continue to live and work here. As a city, we do plenty to allow for more and more tourists to return each year. It's time we focus on the local people who keep the town running year-round and call Seward home. Just about every mountain town in the West is experiencing the same Airbnb housing crisis we are, where working class people can no longer find or afford housing. Our neighborhood is one example of how Seward can help create more year-round housing for its residents. By allowing us property owners to be on well and septic would speed up the process for us and allow us to build sooner and cheaper. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. Anyone else signed in? Yeah, there's no one signed in. Anyone else wanting to speak? It's your chance for 3 minutes of speaking time. Okay, seeing none, I will close this portion and move to the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda, and I need a motion to approve in a second, please.
I'll move for the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any changes that anyone wants to make? Councilmember
Madam Mayor,
Calhoun?
I'd like to pull Resolution 2024-054 from the consent agenda.
4, okay. Any other changes? Okay, are we ready to vote? Okay, Mr. Clerk, we're ready to vote.
Voting of the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda as amended. Kreitz.
Yes.
Wells.
Yes.
Finch.
Yes.
Barnwell.
Yes.
Calhoun.
Yes.
Osenga.
Yes.
And Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, your agenda and consent agenda have been approved, and approved on the consent agenda were the September 9th, 2024 City Council meeting minutes, Resolution 2024-052, authorizing the city manager to extend the contract with R&M Consultants, Inc. for on-call engineering and grant assistance services through December 31st, 2026. Resolution 2024-053, approving Amendment Number 1 to the employment agreement with the city manager, and no grounds for protest to the renewal of the liquor license for the Seward Brewing Company ×2, and the approval of the appointment of the Canvas Board for the 2024 regular municipal election.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Clerk, before we go any further, I'm moving Resolution 2024-054 to other new business after Resolution 2024-051. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Next on the agenda are special orders, presentations, and reports. Within that, we have proclamations, 2 of them. I'll read the first, and it is a slightly late proclamation for Patriots' Day, but we feel it's important. Whereas the unprovoked attacks of September 11th, 2001 upon America by foreign terrorists have thrust the United States and other countries into a war it never envisioned, militarily or diplomatically, and whereas the challenges facing all the people of the world as they relate to the war on terrorism will not end until those with radical ideas that are contrary to peaceful ideals of the free world end, whereas America is fully committed to ensuring our freedoms remain unfettered and sovereign for all generations now and forever, and whereas world opinion needs to remain focused upon the elimination of these inhuman acts perpetrated around the globe, and whereas one way to accomplish this is to never forget that those innocent victims did not die in vain, and whereas America can fight back by reminding the world that the deaths of these people will always be remembered and they will be forever loved, and whereas first responders from Seward and the state are honored and supported when they are called to serve and defeat inhuman acts of terrorism, and whereas a noble and appropriate way to accomplish this is through the annual celebration of their life and their service, and whereas this commemoration should be conducted each September 11th throughout the land to include the proclamation of global peace and goodwill, the demonstration of America's resolve and perseverance to win the war on terrorism, the encouragement of patriotism and love of country, and the poignant remembrance of those innocent victims who died on September 11th as heroes, one and all. Now therefore I, Sue McClure, Mayor of the City of Seward, Alaska, do hereby issue this proclamation in remembrance of and with eternal respect for those whose lives were taken on September 11th, 2001. Not to be forgotten are those who have passed away in the aftermath of the attacks, and those who continue to struggle with lingering side effects due to the psychological and physical harm done. And it's dated this 23rd day of September 2024. And this is something we should all never forget. And I'm going to present this to Council Member Calhoun, perhaps to take to the Legion.
Thank you, Madam
Okay.
Mayor.
Thank you. And next we have a proclamation for Fire Prevention Month, and since I've talked so much, I've asked the Vice Mayor to read this one.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whereas the City of Seward is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our town, and whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk from fire, and whereas home fires killed more than 2,700 people in the United States in 2022, according to the National Fire Protection Association, and fire departments in the United States respond to 360,000 home fires, and whereas roughly 3 out of 5 fire deaths happen in homes with either no smoke alarms or with no working smoke alarms, and whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires almost in half, and whereas smoke alarms sense smoke well before you can, alerting you to danger in the event of fire in which you may have as little as 2 minutes to escape safely, and whereas Seward residents should install smoke alarms in every sleeping room, outside each separate sleeping area, and on every level of the home, and whereas Seward residents will make sure their smoke alarms meet the needs of all their family members, including those with sensory or physical disabilities, and whereas Seward residents should test smoke alarms at least once a month, And whereas residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire, and whereas Seward first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. And whereas Seward residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And whereas the 2024 Fire Prevention Week theme, Smoke Alarms, Make Them Work For You, serves to remind us of the importance of having working smoke alarms in the home. Now therefore, Sue McClure, Mayor of the City of Seward, does hereby proclaim October 6th through the 12th, 2024 as Fire Prevention Week throughout the city, and urges all the people of Seward to make sure their homes have working smoke alarms and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of Seward's fire and emergency services. Dated this 23rd day of September 2024 in Seward, Alaska.
Okay, thank you. And we have a number of fire people here. You want to be the one? You want to say a few words?
Yeah, I mean, that proclamation said a lot, but if you are a Seward resident and you're wondering about smoke alarms in your house, or if they're in the right place, or if you need more, please call the fire department. We have extras. We'd love to come out and check and walk through your home and say, hey, you might want to put one here and test them for you and things like that, and just educate you. So if any members of the public have questions about that, please reach out. We'd love to come and have a conversation with you about that, just to make sure everyone stays safe, because as the proclamation said, smoke alarms are one of the best things you can do to make sure you stay safe and you can escape if there is a fire. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That reminds me to probably change some batteries. Okay, next we have the city manager report, and our city manager is away, but we have the assistant city manager here, deputy city manager, Jason.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. You have the report there, but I did want to cover just a few highlights here. First is Kat discussed previously about that at some point in time coming up here in the near future that the utility counter would be closed. The planning for that has come to a couple of hurdles, so we will not have the utility counter closed at this time for that transition, for some software and for moving it over across the street for utility building for the electric department, but we will keep you posted on when we do get to that point in time. So just a note that the community development is getting really close to finalizing their community surveys for the comprehensive plan. And so they'll be made available to the public starting in October, so we'll keep you guys posted on that, but public input is really important as we are developing that document. And I know that housing has come up a lot today. It did, and the commission, Planning and Zoning Commission, did hold a work session on September 17th. So I think just for people to get more information, you can watch that on the city's YouTube page. But I heard it was really, I didn't watch the entirety of it, but there was some good information in there. It's good to be apprised of that. So on the Parks and Recreation front, adult sport leagues are starting up. So you can be looking for that if you're interested there. And then going back a few pages, I think it's important, Chief Nickel noted that they're seeing an uptick in DUIs. And just, we have a lot of great cab services here. We're just encouraging people to use those. And if you see your friend in that, a cab ride is $20,000. It says right here, a DUI is up to $20,000. So just encouraging people not to drink or drive at this time of year. So. Just to note that they are continuing work up in Lowell Canyon. So I know that people, like in the fall, clear days, they like to get up and cruise around up there. They do have a footbridge put in for people who want to cross the river, but just be aware, be cautious of, there may be crews up there working at times. And that is all I have for my overview, but I'm happy to answer questions on anything else.
Okay, are there questions for administration or comments? Okay, wow, no questions or comments. Good report. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the city clerk report, and I see on page 15 you've got some information on the election, right?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The clerk report in this packet is very similar to the clerk report in the last packet. We're still in the election mode. The absentee in-person voting is in full swing here in council chambers, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. So if you're not going to be here on election day, or if you just want to come in and get it taken care of, we're here for you. And then the canvas board will be meeting on Monday, October 7th at 1 p.m. to count all the absentee and by mail question ballots from the muni election.
Okay. It's almost incomprehensible to me, but I ran into quite a number of people in the last few days that didn't know we were having a city election. So I would like to make a request to either the clerk or administration for like the 2 days at least prior to October 1st, election day, we blast Facebook and put notices out everywhere, and then have the sign also vote today on the, because without, this is the big excuse, but without a newspaper, people don't seem to know things are happening. So it would be important to, and some public requested that we say more about it. So that's why I'm saying it now and trying to get more signage and stuff. Yes, Councilmember Wells.
Are we allowed to put up a banner where we put the other, when we come into Seward and it says Silver Salmon Derby and all that type of stuff? Could we put a vote and the date there?
Usually there's a vote today sign that goes up, but
Correct, it is a vote today
It's
banner,
just
so we
generic.
can't put it up until the day of the election.
yeah. But you can also spread the word amongst everyone, because that's how things are getting notified nowadays, right? 'Cause- Okay, thank you. Did you have anything else?
No, that's all, thank you.
Okay, I appreciate, oh, yeah. Councilmember
Mayor.
Calhoun.
Could we also, on that same vein, start getting out information on when they need to request a mail-in ballot for the November timeframe? Because we have a lot of people now that are starting to look to move south for the winter that live here, and some of them are wondering when they can do that and what timeframe they have. So if we could get that kind of information out.
Okay, off the top of my head, I think October 26th is the deadline, and that's all through the state. If you go onto the State Division of Alaska, or Division of Elections on the State of Alaska website, and then go into like the voting tabs, and you can see like the by mail options, and they have a lot of different options, but you can apply for a by mail ballot through their website. And then we are also offering the same absentee in-person services, October 21st, 8:30 to 4:30 here in council chambers.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's important. People get confused that we have 3 elections, and it's just, it's always confusing. Okay, moving along, unless there's anything else, questions? Okay. We have one report from the Chamber of Commerce Executive Director, Sam Allen, and you want to come up and give your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see you tonight. I've attached a laydown. It's great to get to be in front of you before I travel up to Anchorage tomorrow to attend the TBEC Summit in Anchorage. This is a traveling conference that goes all around the world. They focus on travel content creators. The summit, TBEX, is short for Travel Bloggers Exchange. So they work with DMOs and leading content creators to educate on industry best practices and search engine optimization. So very excited that Visit Seward gets to attend as a sponsor for that event among Homer and Sitka and Visit Anchorage. So it's great to see Seward with the big players up in that arena. So that's this week that we'll be attending. But looking forward in our winter programming, in an effort to drive year-round economy, the Seward Chamber organizes winter weekends. This month in October, it's aptly named October Halloween. It's October 26th through November 2nd. These drivers for economic development and local business support happen in the winter months in an effort to encourage our locals to get out and spend their dollar local, and also for us to target markets in Anchorage and Homer and Kenai to bring them to our community to support year-round development. So two events that the Chamber is organizing are the Trunk or Treat event at the Seward Military Resort and also the Downtown Harbor and Trick or Treat. So keep your eyes out for more information on those events, available on seward.com, seward.com/events, and on our Facebook and social media pages. In addition to that, the Chamber Luncheons start back up in the wintertime. On October 3rd, we're working with the Seward Community Foundation to present on their business partner program. So these educational opportunities are great for our local community to come out and to learn what's available to them in our local town. So that's going on in Chamber realm. Moving on to the Alaska Entrepreneurship Week. This was once called Startup Week, but it's transformed now into AKU Week. Really a nice title, I think. In collaboration with the Alaska Small Business Development Center, these events are created by and for startups and entrepreneurs and small businesses. This week-long event has an event each day, and the topics are chosen based on relevant topics that are facing our business economy, our business leaders in Seward. So based on the topics that the Alaska Small Business Development Center is seeing here in Seward, events were created to help educate and support that year-round business and local businesses succeed. So you can see the list there. I want to point out two important ones. Ladies Who Launch, brought back by popular demand. Our city manager will get to speak at that one, along with a couple of other female entrepreneurs who are role models and mentors for our business community. And the second one I want to point your attention to are buying and selling a small business, planning for a successful sale. This one was also brought back by popular demand, as it's a leading topic in our local SBDC office. So within our marketing contract with the City of Seward, our partnership with the Small Business Development Center and the organization of Alaska Startup Week, now Entrepreneurship Week, is a big push for us here at the Chamber and really valuable to our local community. Moving on to the Hometown and Relocation Guide reprint. I don't have any with me because these things flew off the shelves during the first reprint, and it's the reason why we're doing the reprint a year early. 5,000 copies are printed and distributed. It's a go-to guide for people who are looking to move to Seward and people who are living in Seward to understand how to live in Seward and the opportunities that are there for them, and information on childcare. Right now we're collaborating with Hyper to get all of their licensed childcare providers listed in that Hometown Guide. We're working with the Parks Department to get all of the Seward City parks listed on our map that is so valuable to our community and to our businesses and to us in the visitor center who are directing people where to go. So we are looking to the City of Seward to help us update their 2 pages in that guide. So I'll send that over to Kat and maybe you, Jason, to take a look at. But also there's advertisement opportunities in that guide for local services, local businesses. The City of Seward could consider placing advertising in there. This publication is available online, issue.com/seward.com, if you're interested in taking a look on that at that online publication. Okay, and then finally, the work session request. I would like to reiterate the need and our request to schedule a work session with the City Council to discuss our marketing contract. The City of Seward contracts the Seward Chamber of Commerce to provide services in the destination marketing, in the visitor services information, and in the economic development realm, which is outside of our work as a Chamber of Commerce. It feels like there's this misnomer or this misunderstanding of the two roles that we do. So our function as a chamber is outside of the marketing contract. So I just want to reiterate this need for a work session to bring clarity to what it is we're providing to the city and what's within our scope in the marketing contract. And anecdotally chatting with leaders in the tourism industry about the services that our office provides. The National Park Service comes in to the chamber to deliver their stamp, because people love their stamp so much that says they made it to Kenai Fjords National Park. They close down in the wintertime, so we get to house their stamp and people come to us and stamp their little book with the stamp. But outside that point, speaking with them about how they get so many influx of visitors that it's overwhelming for their staff, and their office cannot refer people, cannot direct people to businesses and restaurants and places to go and things to do outside of the national park. So it's so beneficial for them to say, here's the Derby booth around the corner. The Seward Chamber of Commerce would love to facilitate your questions. Destination marketing is not just marketing, it's management, destination management. In addition to that, our presence at the cruise ship helps facilitate guest experience here in Seward, helps direct people where to go, helps them get a lay of the land, helps the businesses that are inside the cruise ship terminal do their job and make their coffee and get people on tours while we can facilitate, hey, here's how you get downtown. So again, I just would like to reiterate the need for council to direct administration to schedule that work session so we can remain collaborative and ensure that our objectives and goals are aligning. That's my report.
Okay, are there questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate what you do. Okay, we now go all the way down, I believe, to other items unfinished business to discuss wells and septic tanks within the city limits. Is this correct, Mr. Clerk?
That is correct.
That is correct. And we had a work session earlier on this, and this was our chance to potentially give direction to administration to pursue one of the many options. So I'll open the discussion. Do we need, Mr. Bickling, do you want to give us kind of a lead into this, or did I summarize it enough? I mean, having just gone through it, I know what we're talking about.
Well, I
The
think-
public might not.
Yeah, the public might not, and just for those who maybe were not able to they haven't watched the work session, or we're not in the work session, but basically administration brought forth kind of like 4 ideas of just from earlier discussions of some options, and so we had a great discussion on some different options that involve different like code changes and funding opportunities. And because obviously I think we're all interested in making sure that we get residential development done here and done as quickly and efficiently as possible, but also like not just look towards tomorrow, but to the long term. And so we're just trying to find the best solution in that. And so I think we had a great discussion. And so we're just looking for any type of direction from you at this point that just tells us to bring what kind of information that you would, from that, I feel like you need us to bring more information back to you for kind of next steps. And so we're happy to bring back more detailed and any information or any type of even legislation that you would like. So.
Okay, council. Anybody want to start? Councilmember Wells.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Let's let you start.
Okay. So, it was a great work session earlier, and I appreciate everybody that came and participated. And discussing with Councilmember Barnwell and one of the property owners who unfortunately had to leave, I came up with a couple ideas that I'd like to propose, and maybe you could bring back some financial options. So one is where the city pays for the utility infrastructure to bring the roads, the power, and the water and sewer to all the lots. And I know that we had given an option to those property owners some time ago where the estimated cost, for example, was $100,000.
Do you want to specify which lots or where you're talking about?
Oh, sorry, yes. So,
I'm sorry.
In regards to the forest acres and area. Is that good? Mm-hmm. Thank you. So, I know that we were discussing adding wells, adding septics to minimize the cost to the property owners and to help with the housing issue in our community. I think that bringing full service to those lots is the most financial beneficial option for all those lots. And I know that we had discussed with them in the past about stretching that cost out over a period of 20 years. And the person who was here earlier said that cost came to, for her lot, was $100,000, $5,000 a year. And that some of those homeowners, or property owners, would like to have something like the development reimbursement program. So I have a suggestion for a similar option, where we bring in, administration gives us a up-to-date estimate, since we're, as far as I understand, 2 years behind on our last estimate. So we get an up-to-date estimate per lot, and give those property owners two options. One option is that expense is spread out over 20 years, which is the option they had in the past. And some of the second option is similar to the development reimbursement program, where they get the same time frame to repay the note as a developer would, and the city would cover 50%. So for example, with the development reimbursement program, if it's $100,000 and when they sell the property, then they only pay back 50%. And I'd like to see if the property owners would be interested in that option, as so that they would get instead of having to do wells and septics, they would get the full service, the full utilities, as requested by our fire chief and our public works. That would bring the cost down per lot owner drastically, and would be in the similar realm as the DRP fund.
Can I just ask you a question for clarification, please? So you want to bring back just two things. One is just what it would look like for basically that when we're looking at the whole assessment district for all the utilities, we can still have like a 20-year payment plan, but then also a repayment plan would be that, let's say, theoretically, let's say that lot, it costs $100 to bring those in. If they paid it back within like 2 to 3 years or whatever that DRP timeframe is, they'd only have to pay $50,000. Is that what you're saying?
50%.
50%. Okay.
Right. So, which I believe is similar to our development reimbursement program, correct?
Yeah, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah,
And
that's
so
what takes
if we
place.
framed the option, so everybody would get both options, right? So it would be option number one over 20 years, and then within a certain time frame, similar to the development reimbursement program, if they paid 50% back, then the note's done.
Councilmember Barnwell.
During the work session, we talked about an option of just punching down through Cottonwood, which would relieve or reduce the cost of the whole development considerably. It limits some of the lots on the fringe, but I think Doug had talked about that it probably would cover 90 or 95% of the lots in the area. That's a rough guess. Do we want to look at both of those options? Or would that be onerous on you guys to look at that? So we'd look at the whole package, and then we could look at just Cottonwood and how many that would influence, and also the cost differential between the two, but still maintain that idea of the DRP option where people could get a 50% reduction on the cost if they paid it back in 2 years.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, so that would mean it will be, your option, for your options 1 or 2, it's still $3.8+ million upfront.
Yes,
It's
sir.
gonna cost the city okay. I'm just trying to make sure that that's.
Plus inflation, because those numbers
Right,
are old.
so
That's
plus
not the
inflation.
Cottonwood one, probably.
Yeah,
No, I'm talking
Yeah.
about his option 1 and 2, Randy's. So it's still, $4 million that we would have to somehow
Come up with.
come up
yes.
with. Okay, gotcha. That's just wanted to make sure.
Okay, yeah.
A
Councilmember
follow-up, if I
Weiss.
may?
Yeah.
Um,
And I'll get you next.
So we would evaluate the full every unit as we had looked at before. Then we would also evaluate just the Cottonwood idea that Doug had brought in earlier. But either way we go, they would get those two options, either over a 20-year period or over the same time frame that the DRP fund works.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Is that right?
that sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Finch.
And I'd like to add, let's not forget, I know Forest Acres we're talking about, but there's SMIC and behind Pacific Parks, we need to still create the ability for well and septic in these areas.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, those can be two different things,
Right.
right? So right now, we're just talking about specifically one area, or are we talking about additionally with the well and septic also in this? Because I think they're two different things.
So what these two are proposing is actual complete utilities and roads and stuff to that singular area.
To that
either
area.
the whole area or just Cottonwood. So let's see if we want to direct that first, and then we'll talk about the other, because I was going to bring up well and septic. Is that okay?
Well, like
two-
Doug's suggestion about punching through Cottonwood, there'd be like 4 lots and wouldn't
Right.
still give that ability there.
Right, so let's just see if we can agree to give the direction of these two options to administration first, and then, yes, but.
I just want to clarify that, because at this point, we don't have the DRP funds, so we would
Right.
probably have to look for alternative funding to replenish the DRP or accelerate that, or somehow borrow from another, look for other ways to replenish the DRP until we are caught up on the DRP funds that are coming in the next year and a half. So that we accelerate this whole program for hopefully next summer, maybe we can get that going.
Okay. So do we agree to give direction to ask administration to come back with information, whatever they ask for those
For that
two
area.
options, for those, yeah.
Can I ask Councilmember Wells to explain just briefly the economics of this, because he's pretty good at explaining the tax advantage of paying it over 20 years versus the 2 years. So you do get a 50% reduction in the 2 years, but over the 20 years of how that works.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So, if the property owner pays back, let's just say it's $50,000 over 24 months, that instantly takes that money out of the property owner's cash flow ability, instantly. Whereas if you were to take that money and stretch it, that loan over that 20-year period, all of that loan could be go against your taxable income, and therefore your property will appreciate faster than and therefore cover the amount of the improvement, because the second that the improvements are put in, your property is instantly worth that much it'll instantly appreciate that much money. And so to me, as an investor, I like cash flow. So instead of paying, yes, it's costs 50% less to pay it off over 24 months, but it takes that money out of your ability to build a house or to do other investments. Whereas if you were to stretch it out over the entire period of 20 years, it would go against your taxable income. And let's say you only have the property for 10 years, then you get the instant appreciation for the property, but you're only going to pay on it for the amount of time that you own the property before you sell it. So I highly suggest that the property owners take a look at the financial benefits, not just the upfront financial hardship. Take a look at the long-term profit for inflation, for appreciation.
Okay. Any other input on the direction for these two pieces of information? We okay about that? Okay, so then I was also considering how to direct administration to bring back some information on allowing the outliers to have septic and wells, and the numbers of, if we're just considering that, everything that we're talking on this side of the bay for now, outside of what this suggestion was, what would it take? I mean, maybe just bring back what codes need to be changed and some specifics on that, how onerous that would be, and so that we're not forgetting those ones that aren't included in the Cottonwood Forest Acres. This isn't that we're saying we're doing this, we're just getting the information back that we can then process into a, something to vote on, right? Okay. Yes, Councilmember Finn.
Thank you, Madam. It'd be nice to know just how many property owners there are that if a well and septic was put in next summer, could be building a house next summer. That would be nice information.
It's, go ahead. You're twitching your nose
Well,
there.
that's hard to do because it's going to require like us calling every single property owner and figuring out what are your plans, what are your financing, what are your like, so that's a.
No, my point is I'm hoping the public will
Yeah.
hear this and take the time to call you and say, hey, we could.
That's a thought.
Right. That'd be helpful if they called in, yes.
Okay. Okay, Councilmember Conlon.
I really like the idea of looking at that. I think Chief Kreitz talked about 500 feet from a fire hydrant. So if we were to punch Cottonwood out, which lots that aren't on Cottonwood would be within 500 feet of that line, for instance? Or we talked about Pacific Heights. I think some of those Pacific Heights are.
It's a property beyond,
It is, it's a different one, but I think what we're talking about here is, as a city, can we change our code to
Right.
accommodate other lots that are
Right.
close to a city water source, that we might have an exception to the rule, because they would be covered under fire protection. So.
does that make sense to you? Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. Because I think we all want the same thing. We just need to do it right. And it had been mentioned earlier, we want to do it once right, not a couple of times wrong and then fix it kind of deal. So that's why it's taking a little longer, but we're getting there. Is there any other input on this at this point? Obviously, this is going to come back to us. We're not done. We just need to have administration do more work, right? It's what we do. Okay, are we all good with this? Okay. Moving along, we now have some new business. A series of resolutions, there will be 4. The first one is Resolution 2024-049. Mr. Clerk, would you please read this?
Resolution 2024-049, authorizing the city manager to execute task order 2734.31 with R&M Engineering for the 15% design and engineering of the fire station facility in an amount not to exceed $318,330 and appropriating funds.
Okay, and you'll find this on page 77 of the packet. I need a motion to approve in a second, please.
I'll move for the approval of Resolution 2024-049.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Administration, you want to speak to this?
Yes, before I pass it over to Chief Kreitz, I did want to say that as the cities, I think we're learning a lot right now as we are moving towards building a lot of buildings and trying to learn how to go about pursuing funding for doing that, because the city does not have a history of like building buildings on a regular basis. And what we're finding out is that in order to get funding, we need to have things in kind of what's a ready status to be funded. And we have missed opportunities to be funded because we did not have any projects in that. And so the fire department is the one we're talking about today. And the 15% design and engineering is kind of like the least amount ready status that we can get something to. Because moving it down that road is kind of expensive, but if we have it at this place, it's kind of an evergreen thing where it shows the feasibility, what it needs to be thing. It's going to have a concept to it. So that way, it's visually appealing as we take it to legislators, but then also it shows the city's commitment that we do want this project to be done, and we're willing to kind of put this little amount. $300,000 is not a lot when you look at like what the whole project is going to be and how much it's going to cost. And so I'll pass this over to Chief Kreitz here.
Don't blow my thunder, you said.
Okay. but we're just learning a lot, and that this is what we need to do with city projects that we're going to be requesting money for, and so we're requesting to get this to 15%. You want to?
Yeah, like said, we have been approached by legislation before of, hey, we're looking for projects to fund. And we weren't ready, so we had to turn down money. Money is starting to come in for these projects. Just alone in the state of Alaska, the city of Kodiak and the city of Haines are getting new facilities from state legislation. So, and there's also some federal legislation coming in down the road. Our state representatives have asked for a list of fire stations across the state because there might be some federal funding that they need to find ways to spend it on these kind of projects. So we definitely want to be in a ready state. We're kind of pushing it at the wire. Took a while to get everybody's, all the quotes together. But they promised that we can have this ready by the time we go to Juneau and DC, so that we'll have, like you said, something in hand to say this is the project that the city's looking at doing. Included in these quotes is, like you said, is the 15%. They bring in specialists that specialize in not only just the engineering and the architecture, but specialize in fire station and know all the fire codes and NFPA standards of keeping our gear clean and our firefighters healthy by not cross-contaminating dirty gear with clean people. It also includes a geotech study for that location, just to make sure it can go there. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to add.
Okay, questions for Councilmember Finch?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So was that to add on to the pre-existing fire station we have to the lot next to it, or a whole other one somewhere else?
It would be a whole other one somewhere else. That was what the feasibility recommended.
The feasibility study that you guys approved that we did, basically the preferred site is if you look on page 82, they have the location and kind of the footprint that they're looking at there. So again, we did geotech before when we were investigating using that for residential homes, but the geotech, obviously you're dealing with a very large, heavy facility that's centralized into that location. And so they want to do additional geotech in that just to make sure that everything will sit right there. So.
Okay. Other questions? No? Okay, I think we're ready to vote. Mr. Clerk?
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2024-049. Finch?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure?
Yes.
Okay, that resolution has been approved.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Next, we have Resolution 2024-050. And when you're ready, Mr. Clerk, would you please read that?
Resolution 2024-050, authorizing the city manager to accept a proposal from Castellar Consulting, Inc., KCI, for additional investigation and mitigation work on the Jesse Lee Home property in an amount not to exceed $48,946.55 and appropriating funds.
Okay, and you'll find this on page 105 of the packet. I need a motion to approve and a second, please.
I'll move for the approval of Resolution 2024-050.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Administration.
It's unfortunately we're still addressing the Jesse Lee home and the site there. There's a pretty long history in there, but just the most recent happenings were that we thought we were getting really close to being done, and they ADEC, which is kind of directing all of our work up there. The Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation, they say, okay, this is what we found, here's where it is, and they tell you what to do next. And so you complete those tasks. And so we thought we were getting really close because things were, the amounts of basically like fuel oil particulates were decreasing. We're like, oh, this is great. And they said, well, we need you to go down a couple more feet. Well, they went down a couple more feet, and in two of the areas they found significant contamination. And so at this point we've had conversations with the ADEC, and so we're shifting kind of the strategy, because what they're looking at is that you could lose a lot. I mean, spend a lot of money and never clean anything up at this point. And so the strategy has now changed, and so this resolution would basically approve ADEC's saying, hey, we need to drill some holes through here, kind of see kind of what that looks like, and then probably fill it back in and put institutional controls on it, which institutional controls means that they'll probably tell you, well, this is not a place where you can drill a well, because deep down there's contaminants in there. And then they'll probably put like an institutional control that says if you dig down to these areas, if you're gonna put a really deep foundation, you need to make sure that you have a work plan to remove contaminants as you're building your foundation into that. So the plan has changed a little bit, but this is the next step for what ADEC requires us to do,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Questions, comments?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Calhoun.
So, is there any chance, and I apologize to everybody for my voice, is there any chance that we could sort of go back to the original deal where if it's good down to 25 feet, we fill that in, we turn it into a park and a playground, we put it on the deed that it can never be developed for residential or any other kind of use, so that contaminants that are much deeper than that don't even come into play? Because I think once upon a time that was an option, and the city at the time chose not to do that. And so this has stretched out and stretched out and stretched out. So I would just like to find out if we can go back to that somehow, so we can just get past this.
Yeah, and that's the direction we're going, but ADEC just wants to like drill some holes so they have an understanding of that. And we told them like, hey, we don't have any wells in this area. And we showed them where our other city wells are. But they just want to get some core samples. They want us to get core samples, and that's the direction that we are now moving into, is so no more mitigation and just get some more information that they're requiring, and then we can hopefully cover it back up at that point.
Okay.
Yes.
Good question. Councilmember Wells.
I heard you say requiring, so it is required for us to do anything at all with the property, this $48,000, no matter what we want to do, it's got to be spent. We don't have a choice. Okay.
That's the next, like, that's the next step in the work plan that ADC is requiring of us.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else? Ready to vote? I think we're ready, Mr. Clerk.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2024-050, Finch,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Barnwell,
Yes.
Kreitz,
Yes.
and Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, that resolution has been approved.
All right. Moving along, we have Resolution 2024-051. And when you're ready, Mr. Clerk, could you read this one?
Resolution 2024-051, authorizing the city manager to use grant funds for professional design and engineering services from P&D Engineers, Inc. in the amount of $117,673 for the design of the 2nd Avenue Fish Passage Culvert.
Okay, and you'll find this on page 186. I need a motion to approve and a second, please.
I'll move for the approval of Resolution 2024-051.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Administration.
Yeah, I'll have Public Works Director Doug Schessler speak to this.
Okay, Doug.
Okay, this is a grant we'd received and accepted a while back from the Pink Salmon Fund. There'd been some changes in scope and the project's, it's kind of drug out a couple of years here. We did get it extended as far as it was a grant for $118,000 from the Pink Salmon Fund to do a new culvert over there, a better culvert than what was there. At the time, we were designing just a larger culvert to fit between water and sewer and make it a better drain for the flood control for the upstream folks there. As we got through it, Fish and Game and some of the others had came and said, no, it has to be this type of fish culvert, and to do it right. So the engineering, basically, what we're trying to do is go ahead and get the engineering done on it, and the engineering comes to about almost to that price, $117,000 to get engineering for a real fish passage culvert to put it in. It'll cross closer, a little bit south of the culverts that are there now, and closer to the Rotary Pavilion. It'll include just a little bit of a viewing area in the design and some educational. That kind of goes with the Pink Salmon Fund to do those. The big thing that we found, we worked with both the Kenai Watershed Forum along with the grant funding agencies to figure out some of the best ways, and P&D is doing some of the other culverts for the Kenai Watershed Forum, very similar they've been working on. So this dovetailed right in for it, and we just want to go ahead and get it designed. Our funds will expire in March. They don't really want to extend them further, but this would take care of it real well, and there's one more set of funding coming out from the infrastructure for this type of work. And so having the design all done and ready, really kind of similar to some of these other projects, but this is fully designed and ready to go, and with this resolution.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions, comments? Councilmember Barnwell.
Curious if you have an approximate cost of the project?
Cost of project, it's an approximate. I'm guessing it's going to be roughly another 200,000 or so to get it all in. I'm not positive where that'll come in. Maybe less, maybe slightly more, but it's a much, right now the current culverts are 143 feet long that are going through there. They're impacted. They've been in there for a long time, and they're just so long we can't hardly take care of them even with it. Salmon are having a lot of trouble getting in them. This will be a much shorter culvert. It'll be more of a perpendicular crossing than it would be the long straight one away up there. So that's what they're designing it.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we're ready to vote.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2024-051, Osenga,
Yes.
Finch,
Yes.
Barnwell,
Yes.
Kreitz,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
and Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, that resolution has been approved.
Okay, and the last thing we have is Resolution 2024-054, which has been moved from the consent agenda. Mr. Clerk, would you please read that?
Resolution 2024-054, authorizing the city manager to transfer $1,183,355 to the Capital Acquisition Fund, representing 50% of the general fund annual surplus for 2023 and appropriating funds.
Okay, thank you. And it's on page, it just covered it over, 57 of the packet. I'd need a motion to approve in a second, please.
I'll move for the approval of Resolution 2024-054.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. First of all, administration, could you please?
Yeah, I'm going to have our finance director, Sully Jusino, come and speak to that.
And then I'll let you.
This resolution 2024-054 will represent the 50% of the surplus for the fiscal year 2023. This is a fund balance policy that the city has been taking in place, and this policy keep to maintain the level of the fund balance equal to 3 to 6 months of the general fund. It's also a capital acquisition fund policy where we transfer 50% of the previous year annual surplus to keep the funding for different kind of projects, for infrastructure development, safety, public safety expenditure needs over the threshold of 20,000, and by the approval of the city, of the council. The general fund reserves were 1.2 million higher than expenditure and 1 million higher than the previous year. So the general fund came in 1 million higher than 2022, and this continue increasing by sales tax revenue and also large increase on investment income. Any kind of questions?
Questions from, well, actually, I'll turn it over to Councilmember Calhoun, because he's the one that removed it from.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I removed it from the consent agenda just so we could have a little discussion about it, so the public can understand where we're moving almost $2 million, $1.18 million. And so I guess a question that I have is the 1.183 million, it says it represents 50% of the general fund annual surplus for 2023. So there was actually about 2.3 million surplus, approximately.
Correct. The
Correct.
balance equals 7.6 months of expenditures.
Right.
Last year expenditure was totalizing 17.2 million. That represent operating expenses and transfer out.
Okay. So again, about 2.3 million. We had that. The other 50%, where does that go?
It stays in the general fund,
Stays in the general fund.
which it will represent 6.8 months of reserves.
So we're still over the 6 months.
0.8
Reserve.
yes. Slightly, yeah.
So how much, if we brought the reserve down to 6 months, how much additional could go to the CAFR?
It will be 1.8 million, the other half.
1.8.
1.1 million. The other half that stays in the general fund.
Okay, but you said, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to follow it. You said that if we take out the 1.18 million now,
Right.
then we'll be at 6 months plus.
Correct. So the 0.8,
Mhm.
it will represent the other half, 1.1 million.
Oh, okay, so we're still 1.1 million
Correct, over.
surplus
A little bit, yes.
as we're looking at some of the costs that it's gonna take to get infrastructure and things done.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind yourself that in the past, we have been funding the DRP out of this fund. The last funding was in 2023 for 1.4 million.
This is good. This is good.
Great question, Council.
All right. So
Yeah.
that's my main thing. I just wanted to get a little more clarification on where this money came from and why we're putting it where we are.
Right.
And understanding that there's still actually a little bit more of a surplus sitting in the general fund over the 6 months that we look for. And just because I've had this question posed to me, is the transfer of that funds, is that just a policy or is that in code? Is that in our code?
It's in a policy,
It's a policy.
and it also is in our code too, in Title 5 Finance.
Okay, so it is a code requirement,
budgetary,
or
yeah.
a code that we're following.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, other questions? It's a nice situation to be in, especially right now after our discussion tonight.
I just had a,
Yeah, sure, Councilmember Barnwell.
Sully, does that, is the money that's sitting in there in excess for 6 months for contingency, obviously is liquid? Is the money that you're putting, the excess, does that go into accounts that obviously probably draw more interest or earn the city more money? So the liquid accounts are obviously going to be earning less money than.
I guess your question is if it's a cash
Yeah.
money? Yes.
Yeah. So it has to be
So,
cash.
It has been cash. We have a very strong investment that over the years after the pandemic, we have been seeing a high increase of those proceeds. Also, we have some lands proceeds too, so that it will get the general fund reserves.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you for removing that, because I think the public needs to hear this. Okay, we're ready to vote, I believe? Yes, ready to vote.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2024-054.
Thank you, Sonny.
Barnwell,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Finch,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Kreitz,
Yes.
and Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, that resolution has been approved.
Okay, and that's all of the actual business we had. I want to point out that our next meeting won't be, we meet on the second Monday, so it won't be till October 14th, which seems like way far from now. But that very evening at 5:30, we'll have a work session, which is the kickoff of our budget stuff. That's going to take up a whole lot of our time starting about then. And this brings us to citizen comments, and this is the 5-minute time where you can speak on anything for 5 minutes. There's no sign-in, and all you need to do is raise your hand and be acknowledged. So, anybody want to talk? Okay, come on up. You know how it goes.
Rhonda Hubbard, 1800 Jesse Lee Drive, inside city limits. I just wanted to follow up more on the well and septic discussion and directives given to staff, and kind of put some hard numbers to this just for the record, so you kind of understand what the property owners are up against on cost and what have you. We're at 9.14 mils that we're assessed at, and so the average property cost out there is like $65,000, so they're at $600 property tax, I presume, around that. That could be fact checked. But unless they've gone and asked the borough for reconsideration, since they can't build out there, otherwise it'd be at like probably 1% of that, as they gave considerations for others. But if you then add a dwelling to that, and per our P&Z work session on housing, we had some great presentations, and we learned that to build a house now is about $250 to $300 per square foot. So even if someone, if they built, 1,200 to 1,500 square foot home, it'd be that'd be $250,000 to $300,000, $300,000 home maybe. That would add $3,000 to $4,000 in property tax for the dwelling. So now you're up to $3,000 to $4,000, $3,600, $4,600, and then you add $5,000 on top of that for an added assessment. You're pushing $10,000 a year for 20 years, if that's what you want to do. I mean, if that's what the property owner wanted to do and decided to do that. So I just wanted to put that out there so you understand what they're up against, and then asking to pay 50% upfront. Yeah, some people might be able to do that if they have a great fishing season or something, but or not all of them are going to sell their homes or property. It's just a lot to ask. So hopefully Doug can get the cost down out there if he, if there's other ways to work around the whole $3.9 million originally assessed. But I just wanted to make you all aware of that. So if you really put hard numbers to it, $10,000 a year. Thanks. That's all.
Does anyone else wish to speak? It's your last chance. Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to to council and administration comments and responses to citizen comments, and I'll start with Mr. Bigling.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been, proactively problem solving and having conversations around just the housing conversations and utility conversations. It makes a lot better when people are trying to be positive and trying to look for solutions and putting our heads together and trying new things out. And so I appreciate everyone's input and conversation, and thank you for your direction. And so hopefully we can find some good solutions.
Thank you. Councilmember Kreitz.
Don't have much. I think it was a good meeting, good work session. I think we're headed in the right direction on some of the decisions tonight. So,
thank you, Councilmember Barnwell.
Yeah, work session was that's a really tough topic, and I agree with Mr. Bigling. It's fun to work together to try to brainstorm creative solutions to help these guys out. I think it's obvious that we all care a lot about and are trying our best to help them. So hopefully we can get this closed up and get them some help next year, maybe some people can start building there. Otherwise, thank you, Sam, for coming in with the chamber. It's fun to get updated and see what you guys are up to. Fun stuff. And that's it.
Councilmember Finch.
I'd just like to thank the public for coming out talking about the wells and septics. I would love to see the property owners that would be able to build next year contact the city and let them know that they would be able to if their wells and septic thing was approved, just to kind of give us an idea. I like the idea that Chamber is getting the Hyper to get a list of daycare, licensed daycares together. That'll be interesting to see. Moving the funds tonight, I hope will help with the DRP for these people, and hopefully it'll help fund the senior and ADA fishing access we should be working on.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Wells.
Echo everything everybody else has said, and a big thank you to the Seward Chamber, Sam, and I look forward to having a work session. I know firsthand how much the Chamber does for the city of Seward, and you have my full support.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Calhoun.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The only thing really that I want to say is, well, for one, I want to thank the Finance Director for that good information tonight. Thank you for the explanation and helping people understand what we're trying to do. And, you know, for everybody that doesn't live in or have property in Forest Acres that is having the same situation, we're not going to forget that. We're still going to take care of that. And I feel very confident that we will shortly get this all handled, and people are going to be able to build a home and live in Seward. And we're not going to continue to have the shortage that we have. Well, we probably always will have some bit of a shortage. That's normal. But I think we're on the way to getting some of that solved. And we are going to work really hard to make that happen as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Osenga.
In regards to utilities and wells and septics, I'd like to thank all the people that came in and made comments publicly, all the citizens. I think that a lot of interesting and innovative ideas came out of this council tonight, and I'd like to thank administration for all of the effort that they put into this this project. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm just going to echo everything everybody said, because that was a good work session. We're dealing with some tough stuff, and I think we're all of a similar bent that we want to help the people build, and that's what we're trying to do. But we're trying to do it right, not just piecemeal and haphazard. I don't know if you know, but our football team is a bunch of rock stars. They are undefeated, and they have one more game in the season, I believe, right, this weekend. And I mean, just the new field and the team is just, it shines. And if you haven't been keeping up, I'm sure there will be proclamations to this effect as we go along. Yeah, so the field is good. If you haven't seen the football field, it's really nice. There was a ribbon cutting thing, and I was there. Also, I want to remind people, we do have an election coming up. You can vote early or October 1st. And it's dark now in the mornings, and it's dark in the, earlier and earlier. So please be careful while you're out there, not just watching out for children, but also animals that just jump out at you, like very large bull moose that just happen to be walking down the street or in your yard. So just always be aware. Situational awareness at this time of year is really important. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Then I will, you're sure? Okay. I give you a moment. I'll adjourn us at 8:14 then. Thank you.